Hi, this is John Lindopal, and this is Off and On Idioms. Off idioms. To get off literally means to remove yourself from the top of something, so you're getting off of something. Also, to disembark, let's wait for Uncle Phil to get off the bus. When you get off a bus or a ship or something. Stop using something, get off the phone, or you get off drugs. Get off can be to enjoy something gratefully, not something greatly, especially in a sexual sense, but doesn't have to be. Had an art teacher who said, wow, you really get off on drawing those airplanes, huh? So that was definitely not sexual, but you can enjoy something. Get off your soapbox means stop lecturing me, stop giving this speech, stop going on and on about something. Get off your high horse before I knock you off. Let's stop acting proud or scornful before I teach you a painful lesson about pride and scorn. That is, I make you look stupid. Off the top of my head, this is my best guess without thinking very long or deeply. Off the cuff refers to remarks, so those are impromptu, made without preparation, ad-lib remarks. You may have heard the Mark Twain quote where it says, it takes 2 weeks to develop a good ad-lib speech. Ha ha ha. Ad-lib also means off the cuff. On again, off again, or off again, on again. A relationship that stops and starts. A couple keeps breaking up and getting back together, so that's on again, off again. Off and on means intermittently, irregularly, sometimes. His work at the car wash was off and on. Off and running means to have started already, to be in operation, also up and running. So here we go. Off balance means not properly balanced, about to fall over, or not ready for a surprise. So it could be something like, the reporter's question caught the politician off balance, leading to a gaffe that almost ended the politician's career. A gaffe is a poorly thought out statement, it's a misstatement. Off base, literally, a baseball player gets off the base to try to steal or get a lead when the batter makes a hit, so that way he's already halfway to the next base, or so when the ball is hit. And it can also be any statement that's factually wrong. In baseball, of course, the pitcher can pick off somebody by throwing the ball to the base that the runner should be on, and then he's out if he's not back on the base before the ball gets to the player, etc. The idea that the sun revolves around the earth is off base. It's factually wrong. So, off base statement is anything that's factually wrong. Offbeat, literally not dancing or playing an instrument to the beat set by the band. Figuratively, anything that's weird or unconventional. Teenagers often dress and act in an offbeat manner to attract attention. Off-center, literally when a hole, hook, etc. is placed in a position that isn't quite the center of the area in which it's placed, so the picture could be hung off-center for effect. Figuratively, it means something that's offbeat, meant to be different from most other things of its type. Off-color or off-colored, literally not quite the right shade of a color. The bathroom was painted an off-color white, probably because the paint was improperly mixed and sold at a deep discount when the error was found. Sometimes things are intentionally made an off-color. Figuratively, it means something that's mildly risque or dirty, in quotes. So the comedian told off-color jokes once he was sure there were no minors in the audience. Off-color means a little naughty. An off day. An off day is a period, probably a day when a person or a thing is not performing at his, her, its best. The champion ball player scored relatively few baskets, probably because he was having an off day. Off duty, not at work, not supposed to be performing work duties. The armed robber must have wanted to be arrested. He tried to hold up a donut shop with 6 off-duty police officers in it. That actually happened. I read that in the Buffalo News, I don't know, probably 20, 30 years ago, but it did happen. And I assume, maybe the guy just wanted to go back to jail. Off he, she, or it goes when someone starts a journey or an action. Off she goes, yelled the announcer when the ship was launched. Off guard, not watching out for potential dangers, therefore vulnerable. The Japanese Navy caught the U.S. Navy off guard when they bombed Pearl Harbor. Offhand is careless, informal, improvised without really thinking, so you can see the Dark Side of the Moon album cover here, and that's from the song Time by Pink Floyd, where they sing, fritter and waste the hours in an offhand way. Yes, I realize the Pink Floyd guys can sing a lot better than I can. Alright, off key, well, there you go. You can say, John, you were singing off key there. Literally, it's singing or playing in the wrong key. Certain singers are often ridiculed for singing off key. Figuratively, it means it's inappropriate. So Jack's attempts at humor during his job interview were considered off-key by the interviewer. Jack didn't get the job. And that's the difference between real life and a comedy movie. In a comedy movie, I've seen a number of times, somebody completely blows a job interview, just gives wildly inappropriate responses, and the interviewer is usually someone who says, "Oh, I like your style. I don't like too many yes men. I can see you think differently." You know, things like that. And of course, in the comedy movie, you get the job. In the real world, you're just taken and, said, we'll get back to you. And of course, you do not get the job and you never hear from them. All right. Off limits. Off limits means out of bounds, restricted area. You might see a sign in a place saying off limits to unauthorized personnel. That means obviously you shouldn't go there. So the cooks declared the kitchen off limits to any non-cooks while they prepared the special meal. Another definition of AWOL, which normally means absent without leave, in some organizations means a-hole, wandering off limits, when somebody leaves the area without being authorized to do so. To get off someone's back or off someone's case, that's to stop bothering a person. "Get off my back," yelled the annoyed schoolchild as the school security guard insisted on searching her backpack for drugs or other contraband. So to get someone off your back is to get them to stop harassing you. To get something off one's chest is to tell someone about a problem so the problem no longer bothers that person. To be off a person's game, that's when you have an off day and you're not doing well at something at which one is normally good. So you're normally good at something, but you're not good at it that day. That means you're probably having an off day, you're off your game. Or you could also say that you're not bringing your A game that day. When you're off a person's hands, or you take something off a person's hands, that means that thing is no longer in that person's care or possession. It's no longer that person's responsibility. Also, to take something out of someone's hands, it's the same thing, to relieve someone of possession or responsibility. So that problem, hey, they took it out of my hands. It's their problem now. Okay, to be off your rocker or trolley, that means you're crazy. So, oh God, that guy's off his rocker. I'm saying he's crazy. An offshoot is literally something that branched off of something else. The FBI was an offshoot of the Secret Service, which was I'll try that again. The FBI was an offshoot of the Secret Service, which was founded to prevent counterfeiting, not to protect the president. That also came later. Got into an argument my freshman year. "Nuh-uh, the Secret Service is protection of the president. It's not about counterfeiting." That's not true. Well, they do both, but the original thing was counterfeiting, not that. Okay, you can also see spin-off. Spin-off is when they take a TV program that's popular and they take a character or two from that and make a separate TV show. So, for example, in the Wayback Machine, Happy Days, that came on about 1974, was actually a spin-off of another show called Love American Style. I believe Mork and Mindy was the same thing as a spin-off of Happy Days when they had Mork originally appear on Happy Days. So they do that a lot. They, if somebody's really successful, they might try to make another TV show. Off the air, not broadcasting or being broadcast. Before the advent of infomercials, most stations went off the air for a few hours in the early morning. Oops, I have in for a few hours. Oh well, little grammatical mistake I made there. Anyway, the Ed Sullivan Show went off the air in 1970 or so. So that's basically when I was a little baby. But yes, kids, it used to be that stations would have a little legal announcement saying where they're broadcasting from, how to contact them. Then they'd play the Star-Spangled Banner and with a picture of the American flag waving, and then it would go off the air. And you'd get a little thing like we have in the background here called a test pattern. So that's, and a lot of times it would make this nice noise like beep. Anyway. So, off the beam. Literally, that's when a plane is not following the radio beam that marks the path between airports. Figuratively, it's out of order, wrong, or mistaken. John's assumption that the world was flat was off the beam. Off the beaten track, literally in a remote, hard-to-access location. Figuratively, it's something that's unusual. So, maybe this style of music was a little off the beaten track. It's not mainstream, something like that. But, of course, something that's just hard to find. Well, the house was off the beaten track because it was in the middle of the woods. All right, off the charts. A new record so high as to be hard to measure. The scientist's IQ was off the charts. Most tests were inadequate to measure it. Off the cuff mean remarks made without preparation. Skilled politicians rarely make truly off-the-cuff remarks. They have stock responses to questions they've prepared long in advance. I mean, there are a lot of funny things. I care about the issues. Well, what issues? The things that concern you and your family the most, such as... There's a very funny TV show called Cheers, and that was an episode where they got a hack politician to just make a lot of meaningless statements that sounded really good but didn't really say anything. So an off-the-cuff remark, usually a good politician will already have a stock response. But, it's just something you say without making real preparation. Off the grid can be literally off the power grid. Maybe you have your own source of power generation or you don't use anything that needs electricity. Can also mean you're going underground, such as when you are escaping society. So there's a book that's supposed to be written by Saul Goodman from Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul. Obviously, that's not a real person. It's a character played by Bob Odenkirk, and it's written, I think, by a man named Steve Huff. So it says by Saul Goodman and Steve Huff. And the book is about how to flee the authorities or others with whom you may be in trouble and how to establish an untraceable life. So the title is Get Off the Grid. Off the hook means to get out of trouble. So Saul Goodman was an attorney who could get even his guiltiest clients off the hook. Can also mean wild and crazy. You're listening to morning DJs. Aren't these guys off the hook? Jesse asked about the morning zoo radio DJs. That's just a sentence I made up, but have been in in a friend's car and we're driving somewhere and these guys are getting rowdy on the morning radio show, and the guy says, "Aren't these guys off the hook?" All right. Off the mark. Literally, it means when you miss a target. If you're shooting an arrow or a gun or a dart at something and you don't hit the target, well, then you're off the mark. Figuratively, it means you're wrong or that you've gone astray. His comments were off the mark. He implied the reason he didn't steal from work was mostly because he was afraid he'd get caught, not that he believes it was wrong. Well, it's going to be off the mark if you're trying to lecture somebody on why stealing is wrong and you end up just saying, "Oh, well, I'm afraid I'm going to get caught." That's not really the point you should be making. Off the record, not to be repeated, at least not with attribution, not to be part of any official record. So you're very naive if you think answering a question from a reporter off the record means your comment won't be published or even published without being attributed to you, unless you're able to, in quotes, punish the reporter for mentioning your comment or name. Meaning if they don't ever really need to come back to you for anything, etc., they don't care. I think it was Newt Gingrich's mother or something like that years ago where, she's being interviewed by a reporter who said, I think it was Connie Chung, but I'm not sure, basically, said, "Oh, well, I have a word for, women like that." And she said, "Oh, well, can you whisper it in my ear? I won't tell anyone." And, she used the B word to describe it. And of course, that was immediately published all over the place. So just a word to the wise. Off the record does not mean very much when you are dealing with reporters. Off the table means that something is no longer being offered, not under discussion. The union's requested pay raise was quickly taken off the table when the employer disclosed its record losses for the previous fiscal year. Hey guys, now's not a good time to ask for a raise. We don't have it to give you, so we're just going to take that off the table. Off the top of a person's head, that's very much like off the cuff. It's without thinking too much or doing any research. What's the population of California? Well, off the top of my head, I think it's about 30 million people. I'm not looking anything up. I'm just saying, I think it's between 30 and 40, something like that. Off the wall. Okay, well, if something's off the wall, it's unusual, crazy, offbeat. There's also Vans off the wall, kind of skateboarder clothing brand. Off the wagon means that you no longer abstain from alcohol, so when a sober alcoholic relapses, he's said to be off the wagon. Sober alcoholics are on the wagon. It's sometimes called the water wagon. Jerry Seinfeld did a very funny little mini routine in his old TV show, Seinfeld, about, well, what do you mean? It should be when you're drinking, you're on the wagon, because how did you get alcohol somewhere? On a wagon. Ha ha ha. Anyway, we'll take a look at that if I can find it.
Hey, Dick, look, I don't know what your problem is. It's not my fault you're back on the wagon.
It's off the wagon.
Well, in the old days, how do you think they got the alcohol from town to town?
I don't know.
On a wagon.
Off-label use of a drug is when a doctor prescribes a drug for a purpose not approved by the Food and Drug Administration or the official medical establishment. So if Donald Trump is taking chloroquine or chloroquine, however that's pronounced, for COVID-19 prevention or treatment, it's an off-label use. And as many people have said, doctors do give off-label prescriptions all the time, but usually that's when you're being supervised by a responsible doctor. All right, on idioms. So on account means a payment of a debt or account. I paid $1,000 down and $600 per month on account for my car. On account of means because of. The game was called on account of the rain. It's a little informal to say that, but people do say, well, I got fired on account of my beliefs. I started to believe that property that belonged to the company was property that belonged to me. Ha ha ha. Anyway, you can say that. I wouldn't put it in formal writing if I were you. On a cold day in hell basically means never. When will Brad pay the money he owes me? Well, that'll be on a cold day in hell, John. See also when hell freezes over or snowballs chance in hell. It's definitely a very cold day in hell if hell freezes over, and if a snowball has a chance of lasting in hell, it must be a cold day in hell. So here we see a couple of demons who are cold in hell, and it says the Indians and Cubs are in the World Series. Ha ha, little baseball joke there. All right, on a dime in a very small space or on a very small space. This car can turn on a dime. This car can stop on a dime. It means it has a very tight turning radius. It means it has very powerful brakes. On all fours, literally it's on all four legs for a non-human animal. On all hands and knees for a human. Equal to, so artificial Christmas trees aren't on all fours with natural pines or fir trees when you want a Christmas tree. It's appropriate to the case at hand when you're talking about legal argument. Jack found a published case that was on all fours. It completely supported his legal argument. So when you find the perfect legal case to cite, it's on all fours. And here we see a man who's standing on a dime. Okay. On average or on an average or on the average, the typical thing is like this. In most cases, or usually, men are on average taller than women. On an even keel, orderly, stable. So here we see a little boat. Looks like it's leaning over a little bit. It's not quite on an even keel, but it doesn't look like it's in any danger of capsizing or tipping over. And here we can see average daily solar production. So this is on average for, whatever, let's say June, July, etc. And here are the different years. So we can see that it's been going up through the years from 2014 to 2019. All right. On approval. On approval is a purchase agreement where goods are sent and purchased only if the purchaser agrees to purchase the goods, sometimes subject to a time limit. So I remember being a little kid and seeing things in the back of comic books and Boy's Life and things like that, magazines where mail order stamp clubs, they would agree to send you stamps on approval with, so you didn't pay unless you approved of it, but there was an added condition that if the recipient, that would be me or whoever's ordered it, fails to reject the stamp within a certain time, then you've by default accepted it and provided your approval and you have to pay for it. So I didn't think that was a good deal, so I never did that. On consignment, where a product manufacturer distributes a product to retailers and the retailer pays the manufacturer or whoever's trying to sell it for any product it sells or that goes missing. So stores often sell items they obtain on consignment, such as pins, cigarette lighters, etc., as impulse purchase items, and then whatever is missing at the end of the time period when they come by, then they just bill the store for it. You can also sell your clothes at different clothing stores on consignment and things like that. On demand, that means to be done immediately when requested. So COD can stand for cash on demand. There are bearer bonds that if you provide them to whoever is responsible for that bond, that they have to give you the cash that bond represents on demand. On a roll. If you're on a roll, you're enjoying yourself, you're doing well, you're progressing well. The comedian performed for 30 minutes beyond his scheduled hour. He was on a roll and there was no reason to stop. So, for example, on this album, Sam Kinison, Live from Hell, this is his last recorded album before he died tragically. They wanted him to stop at the club, and he just said, I think we should keep going. What are they going to do? You know. So he was on a roll and having a good time, and he wanted to go beyond the time that they'd allotted to him at the club. So on a shoestring literally means, well, it would literally mean on an actual shoelace. That doesn't make a lot of sense, so nobody really uses that term literally. The movie Clerks was produced on a shoestring, figuratively. That meant on a very, very small, tight budget. So its entire budget was roughly equal to the catering budget of a typical Hollywood movie. I don't know that that's literally true, but it probably is literally true, because I think Clerks was financed with about $20,000 in 1993 or 1992 or something like that, which, even adjusting for inflation today, that might be $60,000, which I'm sure any major Hollywood movie, or even just average kind of okay Hollywood movie, they spend more than that just on catering for everybody who's with the cast and crew who has to be fed. Anyway, next one, to go on a witch hunt. To go on a witch hunt is to seek scapegoats for a problem, to seek out unknown enemies, criminals. For example, this guy here in the picture, Senator Joe McCarthy, back in the 1950s, went on a witch hunt for communists in the entertainment industry and the federal government in the 1950s, gave a very famous speech where he basically held up what I think was just a blank notepad, but looked like it had something on it saying, I have here in my hand a list of 250 known communists and communist sympathizers in the United States Department of State. So that led to a lot of people losing their jobs in the entertainment industry, and the federal government led to loyalty oaths. He was finally stopped when someone finally addressed him and said, at long last have you no decency, sir. So there are a few politicians who could use that kind of comeuppance today. Anyway, on a pedestal. All right, a pedestal, literally ped, meaning foot. It's something you stand on. So here we see a statue that's on a pedestal. It's to elevate someone's status in the figurative sense. It's to treat someone as superior to oneself. So, as the comedian and actor Steve Martin said, I like to put a woman on a pedestal so I can look up her dress. Ha 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 ha. All right. On balance, all in all things considered, when one considers all aspects of a thing by and large, on balance, the state's response to the epidemic was quite effective despite making some early mistakes. So on balance means all in all when you consider everything. On behalf of, acting in the interests of, or to act in someone's place. I was present to accept the award on behalf of my brother who was very ill that day. Okay, so the brother couldn't make it to the award ceremony, so I went and took care of it instead. To live on borrowed time. Living past doctors' or others' expectations of one's longevity. Grandpa was living on borrowed time. He was 102 years old and suffering from liver cancer. On call means being available and expected to work on demand. For example, hospitals always have doctors and nurses on call. Yeah, certainly any hospital where patients are actually there, you're going to need a doctor or several doctors, several nurses on call. Also payable on demand. Jim had to pay the bill immediately since it was on call, and the payee demanded immediate payment. On cloud nine, living on cloud nine means being extremely happy. Bill was living on cloud nine after he got sober, found a new job, and regained his wife's house. So he's on cloud nine. See, you can see in the background. On credit is to purchase something using a promise to pay. Purchasing something on credit is essentially a legal contract to pay the cost of the goods plus the finance company's interest and other fees laid out in the credit agreement. Sellers who allow too many people to purchase on credit often go bankrupt when the buyers fail to pay. Certainly, if you're the one backing up the credit and you're not some huge commercial bank that has ways of collecting and or has reserves and ways to not offer credit to people who aren't likely to pay back, yeah, that can happen. There's an old cartoon from the 1800s where it shows a really skinny guy who's very gaunt, obviously needs to eat, and it says, I sold on credit. Then, remember, this is the 1800s, shows this big, fat, happy guy, and he says, I sold for cash only, ha ha ha. So the lesson is, always sell for cash only, and you'll be fat and happy, and you won't be starving. All right. On deck, Literally, a deck is a, in quotes, floor on a ship. They call it a deck. All hands on deck means there's an emergency on a ship and everybody needs to actually get on the deck. Figuratively, it's the next up, next in line. In baseball, it's the hitter who's after the one who's currently at the plate. So here we can see a batter who is in the on-deck circle. And so also it just means simply ready. So be on deck at 8 a.m. for the team practice. On deposit. On deposit means in a deposit account at a bank. So he had $20 million on deposit in his bank account. Since his job only paid $50,000 per year, the IRS was very interested in how that was possible. On duty. On duty means that you're at work, you're performing your job duties. An on-call doctor or nurse that we talked about before is one who's on duty at the hospital or clinic. On easy street means you're doing well, prosperous, rich, not having to work too hard. As to paraphrase the Grateful Dead, when you think you're on easy street, there is danger at your door. Not an exact quote, but close enough. There actually is an easy street in Long Beach, California. I am not kidding you. All right, on edge, excited or nervous. The whole city was on edge after the riots. On foot means you're walking or running. The thief fled on foot. On hand means that you are available, or you have, sorry, not that you're available, that you have something available nearby within reach. So it doesn't mean you're walking on your hands. It means that you have something that you can obtain easily. It is important to have a few $100s on hand in case of an emergency. Keep it somewhere you know about, but others don't. Can also mean here. The school year will be over soon. Summer vacation will be on hand, so it means it will be here. One eye on, that means when you have to watch something while you're doing something else. So the store clerk kept one eye on the kids outside the store while he checked out customers. He was certain they were up to no good. On guard means that you're looking to defend against something. Marines stand on guard outside U.S. embassies abroad to defend against possible attacks. The Canadian national anthem, O Canada, ends with the phrase, we stand on guard for thee. So it's O Canada. All right, on ice means in storage or suspended, because literally you could store food or something like that on ice so it stays fresh. The teacher's career was on ice until the allegations he used excessive force against a student could be investigated and adjudicated. It can also mean practically already one and done. The 49ers win was on ice. They were ahead by 49 points and there were 3 minutes left in the game. On leave means vacation, off duty for an extended time. A sabbatical, you can see this don't bug me, I'm on sabbatical mug here. Basically, it's when a college professor is on leave for an extended time. The auto-reply email told me the doctor I'd emailed was on leave until next week, and I should contact someone else in that department if I couldn't wait until she'd returned. On order. On order means available only by special request. Blue suede shoes are available only on order because they're simply not very popular these days, so we don't keep them in stock at the stores. Only too glad / happy / pleased to do something, very eager to do something is what that means. See also more than happy. George Carlin noted that that sounds like a mental disorder. He was on occasion, once in a while. While she was a vegetarian, she wasn't a vegan since she'd eat eggs and cheese on occasion. So on occasion means once in a while. On one hand, on the other hand, it's a way of comparing two things. On one hand, voting Republican means the Democrat doesn't win, but on the other hand, voting Democrat means the Republican doesn't win. On a person's account because of that person. You don't have to leave on my account means you don't have to leave just because I'm here. To get on a person's back, as we said before, it means to harass someone. On a person's chest, same thing as bothering someone, or it's there's something that's bothering them that they want to get off their chest. On a person's coattails, to succeed because you are associated with that person is to succeed on that person's coattails. So many people said that the TV show Friends succeeded on Seinfeld's coattails. Or here we have somebody who doesn't like Joe Biden who drew this cartoon that, riding Barack Obama's coattails up. He's riding it right into the trash can. So There was an episode of Seinfeld where Jerry decides to put on an intentionally really bad set because Banya, the other comedian, is just kind of riding his coattails. So he thinks, if I put on this really hacky Robin Williams knockoff routine, then they won't like Banya very much. It ends up backfiring. They still like Banya, and they say to him, I don't know, Jerry. That routine was kind of hacky. Anyway, on a person's feet, literally standing up. The audience was on its feet and cheering. Figuratively, to survive on one's own, especially to return to it, to surviving on one's own. The homeless man managed to get back on his feet again after finding housing, food, etc. at a local homeless shelter. So, yay, he's back to supporting himself. See also standing on one's own 2 feet or just own feet. To get on a person's good side or on the good side of that person is to be favored by that person. So while Jack was genuinely interested in the class, some people thought his questions to the professor were a mere attempt to get on the professor's good side. On a person's hands, that's to be in that person's care or to be that person's responsibility. The workers were on my hands that night since I was the acting supervisor. Blood on a person's hands, well, that's kind of awful. Figuratively, it means that that person is responsible for someone's death. Literally, it would mean that the person's hands are literally bloody from killing that person, but probably not. You could have blood on your hands from a cut or something. Usually to have blood on your hands, it's a figurative thing that you're responsible for somebody dying or a number of people dying. On a person's head or upon that person's head, well, it reminds me of the Police song, Can't Stand Losing You, another cheery song. You'll be sorry when I'm dead, and all this guilt will be dead. That's a song by the Police called Can't Stand Losing You. It's about a man threatening to commit suicide over losing a girlfriend. Please don't ever do that. Don't threaten to do it. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Anyway, on a person's honor means bound by honesty, backed by that person's reputation, and of course the Boy Scout oath starts with on my honor. It's timeless values of the Boy Scouts. On a person's knees is when you're begging, desperate, asking for mercy, like this little guy in the animated GIF here. And on a person or thing's last legs, it means you're failing or dying. A person who's on his or her last legs is dying. A car, for example, a 1975 Ford Pinto that's rusted out and backfiring out, is obviously on its last legs, like this fine automobile here. Although this one doesn't look too bad, it's not a great car, and certainly a 1975 Ford Pinto that's in the Northeast would definitely be on its last legs at this point, if it even works at all. All right. On a person's mind, in a person's thoughts, preoccupying that person. We have Willie Nelson, you were always on my mind.
Maybe I didn't love you quite as often as I could have. Maybe I didn't treat you quite as good as I should have, but you were always on my mind.
Willie Nelson is addressing a wife or a girlfriend he neglected by saying, you were always on my mind. Okay. On a person's own, when you have to live by your own wits and resources without outside help, much like being on your own 2 feet, you're on your own. In most, if not all, U.S. states, once a child is 18 years old, his or her parents can send him off to live on his or her own. Most parents don't do that.
Sure do. When you're 18, you're out the door.
So you're in a weird situation between 18 and 21 in the U.S. You're still a minor, so you're not legally responsible for some things. You're not legally allowed to do certain things. But you are actually able to be kicked out of your house, or out of your parents' house, I should say. On a person's own account, that person is acting for himself or herself. After doing business for the company, the CEO made some purchases on his own account. Also, on a person's own hook, so you can do things on your own for yourself, that's on your own account. Do something on your own time. So you want to do things when I'm not paying you for your time to do what I want, not what you want. Or you can talk about whatever you want or do whatever you want when I don't have to listen to you. As it goes, you can speak your mind, but not on my time.
speak your mind, but not on my time.
On a person's part, on the part of a person, of or pertaining to that person. Failure to plan on your part does not constitute an automatic emergency on my part. You can see here's one version of that sign that I found online. You can find probably literally thousands of these things if you look for them. Basically, it's a sign that's found in practically every student financial aid office, the bursar's office, the registrar's office, at any college where students have to deal with the administration over, I don't have my financial aid, where's my money, I need to be in this course. They'll just say, well, you missed a deadline, and unfortunately a lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on our part. You'll also find this in any government/unionized secretarial pool's office, because you can only use this with your boss or with somebody who has authority over you if you know they actually cannot fire you. If you don't have a strong union or it's not civil service, you will probably be invited to leave if you do that. So don't use that line unless you're 100% certain the person does not have the ability to fire you on the spot. On your shoulders, you can see a little kid, and looks like on her daddy's shoulders. It's the same as in your hands. It's on your shoulders, means it's your responsibility. On your toes means that you're attentive and ready to act. On the ball means that you're paying attention, being skillful, ready to act, similar to on your toes. On one's uppers means to be poor, going through rough financial times. I think that's a British expression. I literally had never heard of that till I read that in the book that I've used for this video. But hey, it could definitely show up on the SAT since it's a word that, or a phrase that most people don't know. On pain of or under pain of, at the risk of suffering. He swore his story was true on pain of death. So that means where you're actually going to risk being put to death if you're not telling the truth. On paper, according to appearances and official records, I look so good on paper, I feel so very small. That's my edited quote from the Dead Kennedys' Straight A's, which is on this album here, Give Me Convenience or Give Me Death. Waiting on pins and needles. Okay, that means you're waiting nervously, so you can look up the song Needles and Pins by the Ramones.
Well, that's how it begins. She'll feel those needles and pins.
Which is actually a pretty good song. You should listen to it. On purpose means intentionally. So my 5th grade teacher liked to respond, you mean accidentally on purpose, when a student claimed he or she done something bad accidentally. Accidentally on purpose is an oxymoron. It's a self-contradiction that may express a higher truth. For example, some psychologists believe there are no accidents. People subconsciously do exactly what they intended. Or to be much more simple about it, just, yeah, kids claim that something they did intentionally was an accident when they get caught, which is probably what my teacher meant. On record, officially known as, having been presented officially for everyone to know, wasn't said privately, it's not a rumor, but it's an actual fact. So, this politician is on record as having said blah blah blah, you know, that kind of thing. On sale, something that's being sold at a special low price. It's a typical store gimmick, you know, it's a scheme to get somebody into the store. You can also see, for example, a loss leader where a retailer sells something for less than its wholesale cost in order to attract customers. So if a hamburger costs Burger King $1.10 to make, but they sell it for $1, they're losing a dime on it. So you might say, well, that's crazy. They'll go out of business if they do that. Yes, but if you come in, buy the hamburger, and buy some soda that costs them 20 cents, but they sell it to you for $1, they're getting the money back that they lost on the hamburger plus some. So that's called a loss leader. The idea is to get you into the store to buy something on which they will actually make money. Okay, on a person's uppers, well, I don't know why I repeated that, but here we go. It's a British saying, it just means very poor, or I think it's a British saying. Anyway, if you see it, now you'll know. It means you're very poor. So if you're on your uppers, you're not doing very well. On schedule. On schedule means on time, as planned, punctually. The trains in this area always run on schedule. You can say also on time. So what people like to say about certain dictators is, say what you want, but he made the trains run on time. So the dictator made the trains run on time. On time can also mean paying in installments. You can say, oh, I'm paying for that on time. Well, I bought that new dishwasher on time. Ha ha ha. Okay, so on second thought means that you're reconsidering something. Well, on second thought, the dictator wasn't all bad because he made the trains run on time. Ha ha ha. On speaking terms, knowing someone well enough and being friendly enough with that person to be able to walk up to them and start speaking to them. I am on speaking terms with the president. You might say, well, okay, that person is my former best friend, but we're no longer on speaking terms. So that's someone you're not friends with and can't go up and talk to. It's related to on a first name basis. That's pretty impressive if a celebrity or an important politician or something like that is actually close enough to you that you two are on a first name basis. Reminds me of an old episode of Cheers again, where this guy sold a joke to The Tonight Show and then pretended he knew Johnny Carson, who was then the host of The Tonight Show. And someone said, oh, do you know Johnny? And the guy responded, well, does anyone really know Johnny? So he's deflecting, but he's implying that, well, of course I know him personally, but I don't really know his psyche. And yeah, very funny joke on Cheers. Okay. It's a lot funnier when you actually watch it rather than hearing me retell it. So anyway, on strike. On strike is, of course, refusing to work as a protest against low wages or poor conditions. That's why unions are important, so you can go on strike and actually get some effective change in the workplace. On tenterhooks, it's similar to on pins and needles, waiting in painful suspense. A tenterhook is a hook used to hang cloth on a tenter or drying frame. On the air, then of course that's the opposite of off the air. Broadcasting or being broadcast. Most modern TV stations are on the air constantly. The days of the national anthem followed by a test pattern are long gone. Can also mean that a show is still being broadcast. So, for example, Saturday Night Live has been on the air since 1975. Isn't that amazing? On the alert, watchful, be on the alert for suspicious characters. Okay, to be on the bandwagon is joining a movement because it's popular. On the beam, well, that's the exact opposite of off the beam. It is following the established or beaten path, going in the right direction. Literally, it's when a plane is actually following the radio beacon so it knows where it needs to go. On the bench can mean serving as a judge. For example, Judge Dredd had 20 years on the bench and was a no-nonsense jurist. Waiting in reserve as a replacement player. Joe Schmo spent most of his career on the bench as a third-string quarterback, so he was the guy they only brought in when the game was about to end anyway, and they didn't want to get the regular quarterbacks hurt, etc. On the blink means broken, malfunctioning, inoperative. The TV was on the blink again, so we listened to the radio. You can also see on the fritz. On the block, up for sale at the auction. After Bill defaulted on the mortgage, his home ended up on the block, and Jack bought it at a deep discount. All right, on the brink of means you're about to suffer. Well, here we see babies on the brink. Luckily, this baby is being watched very closely by presumably his or her mother, but they do experiments like that to see if babies know to stop and things like that. Some sort of psych experiment. Okay, oops. And anyway, so if you're on the brink of something, you're about to suffer a big loss. So Tiny Town was on the brink of economic disaster when the college and the cable factory closed at the same time, leaving practically everyone jobless. Yeah, I would say that's definitely the brink of a financial disaster, and probably unavoidable. On the button, exactly right. Bob's remarks were on the button. They summed up the situation exactly, also at the exact time. You can see also on the dot, so if you show up on the dot, you're at the exact right time. On the cheap, inexpensively or frugally, Bob buys his cars on the cheap at police auctions. All right, on the contrary, just the opposite of what you just said or thought. Some people think pessimists are very unhappy. On the contrary, they're very happy since 90% of the time they're right and 10% of the time they're pleasantly surprised. You can see also au contraire. On the dole means that you're collecting unemployment or welfare. So corporate subsidies from the federal government have been criticized as simply putting already wealthy people on the dole at great expense to the taxpayer. Bart Simpson's life goal was to live on the dole from Uncle Sucker. No, that really isn't a Simpsons episode. And here we see a British cartoon where they call their welfare offices Social Security offices. So we have a couple of recent graduates behind the lines of more typical looking recipients of welfare. On the double means hurry up. Get this to HQ on the double means get this to HQ as fast as you can. So that's kind of a military statement. Medical, if you need something done as soon as possible, you'd say stat. Of course, ASAP or ASAP also means as soon as possible. That's literally the acronym for as soon as possible. On the edge of your seat means paying rapt attention, in suspense. The Thriller movie had the audience on the edge of their seats. So here you have somebody who's on the edge of his seat eating some popcorn or something while watching a movie. On the eve of means right before, or literally should be the night before, not the night for. Oops. We're on the eve of destruction. Means we're about to be destroyed. Gee, I hope not. That's that old song from the 60s. I can't believe we're on the eve of destruction. Anyway, on the face of it, just it appears, without delving too deeply, that something is this. So on the face of it, it appears Jim quit his job for no reason and therefore cannot collect unemployment. You can see also the Latin phrase prima facie, which is basically Latin for on the face of it. A prima facie case sets forth the bare elements of a case, but can be rebutted with additional facts. So a prima facie case of negligence might be you hit me with your car. A rebuttal to those facts might be, yes, but you were drunk and ran out into traffic, nowhere near a crosswalk, I just couldn't stop in time to avoid hitting you. On the fast track means that you're rushed or granted expedited action to rise through the ranks of an organization quickly. So Jack was on the fast track. He went from the mailroom to the boardroom in 5 years. On the fence means you're not wanting to or you're unable to choose. The man was on the fence about whether to vote for one candidate or another in the election. So here we see a rooster that's literally on the fence. Ha ha ha. But figuratively on the fence means you can't decide or you won't decide. On the go. Well, on the go means you're busy or active. Successful people are always on the go. They don't waste much time. On the fly literally means something is in flight while you're doing something. So while something's in flight, bats often catch bugs on the fly. Figuratively, you're doing it while you're doing many other things. The billionaire often dictated correspondence on the fly. He would use his voice assistant to compose emails as he worked out in his home gym. Or if you're just plain busy, I've been on the fly all day. On the heels of means immediately following. So here we have Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here. Here's a little graphic from that album. Was a hit album on the heels of their wildly successful Dark Side of the Moon. On the hour means at the exact hour, no minutes and no seconds past the hour. So at exactly 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, etc. The radio station plays the news on the hour and weather on the half hour. That would be when it's exactly 30 minutes past the hour. Can also be on the quarter hour, 6:15, 6:30, things like that. Or it could be on something unusual like the sevens, 6:07, 6:17, etc. Some radio stations do that. Oh, we give you the weather on the sevens, Anyway, on the house means free of charge. Designated drivers are given all the non-alcoholic drinks they want on the house at many bars. Soft drinks from a gun cost much less than defending a dram shop lawsuit. In case you're wondering, dram shop laws are laws that hold bars, restaurants, and social hosts responsible for drunk driving by patrons or guests. And also there's an older expression called one on the city. That means when you go to a bar and you just want a glass of water. On the job means on duty, at work, not loafing or resting, taking care of business. On the lam, L-A-M, means in flight, fleeing, running away from something. To take it on the lam is to run away. And there was an old Daily Show thing from probably about 10 years ago where the seller just wanted a fair price for a good product. There's your example. On the line, okay, lay it on the line, means to take a risk. His life is on the line, he's risking his life. Can also mean on the phone.
This is what we've waited for. This is it, boys. This is war. The president is on the line. It's 99 red balloons go by.
The president is on the line. 99 red balloons go by. So that's Nina's 99 red balloons or 99 Luft balloons. On the phone means you're using the phone. And here we have Triumph's album, Just a Game, where they have Lay It on the Line.
on, won't you lay it on the line?
To be on the lookout is to watch closely for something. BOLO is a police acronym for be on the lookout. The police radio announced be on the lookout for a 2006 Honda Civic with Arizona plates, last seen northbound on I-5. You can see also be on the watch. It means about the same as be on the lookout. On the make means that you're making promiscuous or aggressive sexual advances, or that you're aggressively working to get ahead in your career. On the loose, at large, running free. The golden goose is on the loose and never out of season. That's from the old Iron Maiden song, 2 Minutes to Midnight. And on the market, available for sale. Well, looks like this guy has just blown up the United Nations, so this real estate may be on the market soon and relatively cheap. Ha ha ha. On the money or on the nose, making exactly the right points. For example, in this Simpsons excerpt.
My suit, thieves. Daddy, I'm stealing! I'm stealing!
Oh, that's my little dude. We need a symbol, something that says we're gay and Republican.
A little on the nose, don't you think?
Excuse me.
On the move means in motion and taking action. Busy executives and con artists have some things in common. They're always on the move and they know the value of packing light. Also, on the move can mean headed toward success. On the outs means not friendly, so for example, Carolyn and Bill aren't friends anymore. Something must have happened to cause them to be on the outs. AC/DC, razor's edge. Okay, so if you're on the razor's edge, you are in an uncertain, dangerous situation. Here's some Motorhead lyrics. You've been living on the razor's edge as soon as you learn to shave. There you go, Motorhead, Cradle to the Grave. On the point of, it's the same as to the point of. It means at the point of something. So the athlete was on the point of exhaustion after the triathlon. That's a really big athletic event. Yeah, you would definitely be on or at the point of exhaustion. On the pill means that a woman's using the birth control pill. She was on the pill because she had menstrual problems, not for contraception. Yeah, there's your example. On the right track, headed for success, a solution, etc. You haven't found the solution yet, but you're on the right track, said the math teacher to the student who was struggling with a math problem. The opposite would be on the wrong track, means you're headed for failure. You literally will not end up where you should be. And here's a little quote for you. Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there. And that's from Will Rogers. On the road means going from place to place, traveling. The funk band was always on the road. If they weren't at a gig, they were traveling to the next gig. And on the run means in a hurry or running away from someone or something. I'm on the run all day today. Can I call you tomorrow? The defeated troops were on the run from the quickly advancing enemy. On the rocks literally means wrecked on some rocks, like a ship was destroyed on the rocks. Figuratively, it means the relationship was on the rocks. The couple couldn't even be good friends, let alone lovers. Another meaning, a drink on ice, is on the rocks. The opposite is neat, which would mean no ice or mixer. So here we see, looks like whiskey or something like that, that's on the rocks. And whiskey neat would just be the same glass with no ice in it. And okay, so neat means no ice or mixer in the drink, pure liquor. And you can think of the song by Neil Diamond, Love on the Rocks, ain't no big surprise. Pour me a drink and I'll tell you some lies. Okay. Alright, on the ropes, literally it's when a boxer is up against the ropes of the boxing ring, like this guy is here in the blue outfit. Figuratively, it's when something's about to fail. So dial-up internet providers that couldn't switch to high-speed internet quickly were on the ropes once DSL, cable modems, and fiber became widely available. To be on the safe side, it's exactly what it sounds like, to make sure you are safe. Just to be on the safe side, let's make sure the gas tank and oil are full and the tires are fully inflated. We're driving more than 500 miles tomorrow, much of it through a desert. Wavelength, okay? Wavelength literally means when you're dealing with light or sound or anything else that travels in waves, how long it is from one peak of the wave to another one. So usually that also controls how things are transmitted. So if you're on the same wavelength, you're able to transmit and receive with each other. So basically on the same wavelength means on the same page with someone. It means we understand each other. On the same wavelength means we understand each other, share the same values. Bernie Sanders and AOC are on the same wavelength concerning economic matters. Sanders and AOC are on the same page generally, so they agree with each other, they understand each other. So the opposite of the same wavelength, literally and figuratively, would be out of phase, since literally a wave that's 100 degrees out of phase will cancel the other wave. That's how noise-canceling headphones work, whatever things they put on passenger airplanes to mask the noise of the engines. On the side means extra something. A burger may come with french fries on the side. Someone who's having an extramarital affair may be said to be seeing another person on the side. On the sly means to do something secretly or sneakily. The football fans drank liquor on the sly from their hollowed out binoculars that they called barnoculars. That is a real product, barnoculars. No, I do not recommend that you use them. On the watch means on the lookout as stated above. Not on my watch, not while I'm in charge. Prisoners escaping, not on my watch. So the idea is not while I'm in charge. No one's going to escape. And here's a guy, looks like a military guy who's on watch. On the spot, exactly here, present where needed. Can also mean in a bad space under pressure. Hey, sorry to put you on the spot, but I need you to repay that money you borrowed immediately, if not sooner. Also in a spot, which means the same as on the spot. So you could say, sorry to put you in a spot. And on the spot also is ancient slang, apparently, for marked for death. The informant put himself on the spot when the gangsters found out he told the police about their illegal activities. Ew. On the spur of the moment means impromptu, improvised. The politician gave a speech to the crowd on the spur of the moment. On the stage, literally on a stage. So here we see backstage, which is opening to the front of the stage. And figuratively means that you're working as an actor if you're on the stage. On the strength of means with the support, proof, etc. of something. Bob made it as a podcaster on the strength of his experience as a radio announcer. And then to have someone on a string means to control someone. Jane had her boyfriend on a string. Watching her manipulate him was pathetic. You can also say wrapped around his or her fingers. You can say Jane had her boyfriend wrapped around her finger. On the stump, campaigning for something. Carl Candidate was on the stump for superintendent of schools. On the table, that means the opposite of off the table. Salaries and vacation time were both on the table in the negotiations between the union and the employer. So, yeah, now's a good time to talk about it. Let's keep that on the table. On the take, corrupt, accepting bribes. Mike Ehrmantraut, if you're familiar with Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul, knew the whole police precinct was on the take, but his son, a new police officer, was unaware. On the tip of a person's tongue is when a word eludes someone, you can't quite remember it, or that person can't quite remember it. Carl couldn't think of the right word, it was on the tip of his tongue. On the town, out celebrating, partying, etc. The victorious football team went out on the town. On the track of, on the trail of, searching for someone or something. The TV crew was on the trail of Bigfoot. On the up and up, honest, crooked, not a scam. The scheme to buy up unsold NFL tickets so the game would be blacked out locally was on the up and up. Unfortunately, enough people thought it was a scam that it didn't raise enough money and the game was still blacked out. This actually happened in Buffalo, New York in the 1990s. On the warpath, attacking. Klingons on the warpath. There's trouble in Sector 5. Alright, that's Joe Walsh, Space Age Wiz Kids. And on the way, something's coming or something is between where you are and where you're going to be. The package is on the way, you should see it tomorrow or the next day. Can you stop off at the store and get me some yeast? It's on the way to the store you're going to anyway. On drugs, most of you probably know that. It means you're intoxicated or influenced by drugs, actively using that substance, like this stoned kitty cat here in the upper right-hand corner. On taking or accepting something on faith means to accept something without proof. On file means it's on record, it's in an organization's records. Rejection letters from employers often end with sentences such as, while we are unable to offer you a position at this time, your resume will be kept on file for the next 6 months. So I always think of a file cabinet like the one in the upper left-hand corner, but it may very well be what people call the circular file, which is a wastebasket such as the one pictured in the lower left-hand corner. On foot means running or walking. The burglar fled on foot. And of course, if you're on anything, any particular drug or intoxicant, again, you're intoxicated or influenced by it. So, I'll try that again. That has led to some humorous situations such as on pot versus on the pot. On pot means you're intoxicated, high, or stoned on marijuana. If you're on the pot, it means you're sitting on the toilet. So an old man I know got into a car accident because somebody rear-ended him, and he said he thought the other driver who rear-ended his car was, in quotes, on the pot. But hey, maybe the other driver had a commode for a driver's seat like we see in the lower right-hand corner here. On the whole, in the most important aspects, on average or in the aggregate, on the whole, people who wash their hands more often tend to suffer fewer infections. Hand washing does prevent infection. On top means to win, to celebrate a victory. If you're on top of the world, it means you're feeling great, as though you've won a great victory. Southern expression for the same thing is sitting on high cotton. I'm on top of it, similar to I'm on it, means I've got it under control, I'm working on the problem, etc. So an unfortunate slogan that South Dakota developed for its program to curb the use of methamphetamine was "Meth, we're on it." So that can also mean that they're all taking methamphetamine. I'm pretty sure this rancher, meth, I'm on it, or the football team, I hope they're not on it. I know athletes and farm workers have been known to do a lot of meth, but pretty sure that's not what they meant. So it can also mean that you are literally on top of something. You're standing, sitting, or laying on top of it. If you're on trial, it means you're being tried civilly or criminally for some legal violation. And if you're on probation, it means that you're being legally supervised as a punishment for a crime. Could also be supervision to see if a person should remain in a job or as a member of an organization. So if you're a probationary employee, you still have to make it a certain number of months or years before you're not on probation anymore. So there are going to be restrictions on what you can do until they're sure that they want to keep you. It's also much easier to fire you when you're on probation than when you're not. And same thing, you might be a probationary member of a fraternity at a college, or the fraternity itself can be on probation. Or as they said here, they're on double secret probation, so they're put on an extra probation on top of the probation that they know about. And one of the scenes in Animal House, Dean Wormer walks in and sees everybody, trying to hide their beers in a futile way, and says, "Oh, looks like someone forgot about the prohibition of alcoholic beverages and fraternities on probation." All right, on parole, that's when people released from prison are released, but only on the condition that officials can search their homes at any time, ask them to report for inspection, provide reports, da-da-da-da-da. So it's not being released free and clear, but it's only if these people can come and check on you. So that's parole, being on parole. Did you find this video useful? If you did, please like it and subscribe to this channel. Neither action costs you anything. You will be alerted about my new videos. Why do I care? It's simple. YouTube does not let me share in any of the ad revenue unless I have 1,000 subscribers and 4,000 hours, that's 240,000 minutes, of view time in a year. So if you have seen any ads during this video, please know I did not get any money for that. And while many people are watching these, I don't have 4,000 hours of watch time. I also don't have anywhere near 1,000 subscribers, although I do keep getting more almost literally every day. For the same reasons, you are not only welcome, but encouraged to share links to this video and put it in playlists, etc. I'm always happy to read and respond to constructive criticism and suggestions for new videos. And I also reserve the right to delete comments from and block those who specialize in destructive criticism, trolls or things that are off topic, such as spammers and disturbed people. If you want to contact me, you can always call me on my cell phone, 415-623-4251. You can also text me on that very same number. And you can email me at john@johnlinneball.com. You can mail me at 1859 Powell Street, number 109, San Francisco, California, 94133. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great